Welcome to another episode of Rust Run. Today we're diving into one of the building blocks of Rust programs, functions. We'll start simple and build up. Let's write some real Rust code together. Let's start by setting up a fresh Rust project to play with. We'll run cargo new functions, jump inside the folder, open the project in VS Code, and we're ready to go. Functions are everywhere in Rust. One of the first ones you already met is the main function. It's where every Rust program begins. We've also seen the fn keyword, which is how we create new functions whenever we want. Now let's create our very first custom function. We'll call it another underscore function. To define a function, we start with the fn keyword, then the function name, followed by a set of parentheses. The curly brackets mark the start and end of the function's body. That's where we put the code the function will run. We'll keep it simple and just print a quick little message. Couple of quick things to notice here. First, we name functions using something called snake case. That just means all the letters are lowercase and we use underscores to separate words. This is the standard for both variable names and function names in Rust. And second, the code inside the function won't actually run until we call the function. Just defining it isn't enough. Okay, so let's actually call our new function. To do that, we just need to write the function name and add a set of parentheses right after it. That's it. You might notice that we defined another underscore function after main in the source code, and that's totally fine. In Rust, it doesn't matter whether you define a function before or after you call it, as long as it's somewhere visible to the caller. All right, let's run our program and see what happens. We start by executing our program from the entry point, which is the main function. First, it prints hello world, just like we told it to. After that, Rust keeps going and hits the call to another underscore function on line 4. So it jumps inside another underscore function and runs the code written between the curly brackets. That's why we see the text another function printed after hello world. All right, now let's make our functions a little smarter. We can give functions parameters. Think of them like special input variables that the function can use. When you call the function, you pass in real values for those parameters. Technically, those real values are called arguments, but honestly, most people just mix up the words parameter and argument in everyday talk. And as usual, let's put our new knowledge to the test. Let's take our previously created function and modify it to accept an integer as a parameter and print it to the console. We'll start by specifying the parameter inside the parentheses. Notice, when we define parameters in Rust, we have to be explicit. We're not just giving the parameter a name. We also have to tell Rust exactly what type it is. All right, now let's tweak our println macro a little so it actually uses the parameter and prints it to the console. One of the extensions from our Rust Run extension pack just gave us a heads up. Now that our function takes a parameter, we also need to pass in an argument when we call it. All right, let's hit cargo run again and check it out. Awesome, it worked. We passed in 5 and our function printed it out perfectly. That's Rust doing its thing. Let's spice things up even more and create a function with 2 parameters. This time I'll declare the function before main just to show you that in Rust, the order of function declarations doesn't matter at all. As always, we start with the fn keyword followed by the function name. Then we list the parameters inside the parentheses, separated by a comma. We can add as many parameters as we want and using whatever types fit our needs. every function signature, we have to specify the type of each parameter. That's not an accident. Rust was designed this way on purpose. By requiring type annotations up front, the compiler doesn't have to guess what types you're using, and it can give you way more helpful error messages when something goes wrong. Let's take those parameters and print them out to the console. Time to call our new function. We'll pass in two arguments, 10 for the value and h for the unit. And yet, everything looks solid. Our function worked just the way we wanted. Alright, now let's talk about how functions can return values in Rust. When a function returns something, we specify the return type after an arrow. It's just a dash followed by a greater than symbol. Let's dive into the code and look at a couple of examples. Alright, let's write a super simple function together. I'll create a function called 5 that will return the number 5. So first we start with fn5, then add our arrow followed by i32 because we want to return an integer. Inside the function, let's explicitly use the return keyword to return the value 5. Cool. So here we're clearly telling Rust return the value 5. Alright, now inside main we'll make a variable named x, call the 5 function, store the result in x and print it out. Alright, let's go run it real quick and boom, the value of x is 5. But now here's the fun part. In Rust, we don't actually need to write return keyword. If the last line in a function is the value we want to return, and we leave off the semicolon, Rust will automatically return it for us. That's because in Rust, the final expression in a block becomes the return value, and no return keyword needed. Alright, let's build a function that takes a number, just any number, and gives us that number plus 1. Alright, here's a new function called +_1. It takes one parameter, x, which is an i32, and it returns an i32 as well. The body of the function is just x plus 1. And since there's no semicolon at the end, Rust treats it as an expression and returns the result automatically. Now, let's call our +_1 function. First, we'll create a variable to hold the result of the operation. Now, let's assign the result of calling +_1 function to our new variable. We'll pass in x as the argument, which we previously set to 5. Then, on the next line, we'll print the result to the console. All right, let's run our program and see what we get. Yep, looks good. We passed in 5 and got 6 back from our function. Functions, done. You'll see them everywhere from here on out. Next up, statements and expressions. And trust me, you'll want to know the difference. Hit that next video. Let's keep going. It's way more fun learning this stuff together. So don't go anywhere. Hit subscribe and let's keep exploring Rust side by side.